Looks good. Says we are now live. We should be good. We're a minute in early.
All right.
So let's see. We're good to go. So it's Bonding with Board Games is the channel. As you guys can already see, we're here with Uwe Eickert, who's from the man, the owner, the creator of Academy Games, and just what happens to be my favorite tactical war game system, Conflict of Heroes. So how's that intro?
Wow, that's incredible. Thank you very much.
We're enjoying a dram, each of us.
Yes, well, we're already on the taste testing double dram versions.
Yeah, now explain that real quick. That was a great story as we got started here. So go ahead and open up with what you're doing with two different types there.
Well, we're going to China on January 8th. Myself and some other publishers, a group of us with Seth Hyatt from Mayday to Games. And we're going to go visit some factories. And I always like giving gifts. I've always found it's very nice to give gifts to the manufacturers. And manufacturers like clothing and all that. But I found one thing that China doesn't have make worth a cent a hoot is with alcohol. And they all love good alcohol. So I wanted to get a local alcohol for us and all. So as I said, I've always asked Knob Creek to sponsor Academy Games, become our world sponsors. Still haven't heard from them. But I bought a bunch of Knob Creek at the liquor store. Had the lady go back twice so she could get me a bunch of bottles. I have a whole case of them now. And then I saw their Knob Creek single barrel 120 proof. And it was a bit more expensive. And I thought, But I just opened them up like 3 minutes ago. And I have to say, I'm not a bourbon fan, and Knob Creek is my bourbon of choice if I have to drink bourbon, and I really like Knob Creek. This Knob Creek single barrel reserve, though, all I could say, as you saw, man, it hits the tongues in places. Delicious. Unbelievable.
Now that's perfect. What I'm drinking on right now, what this is Brook Lottie puts out. They're in Scotland. It's an Isla, and that's a region in Scotland. And they put out a heavily peated. This is the heavily peated Scotch, and they do two versions of this. And this is the Scottish barley version, and it is probably my favorite Scotch right now. And then a little bit later, after that one's done, I'm gonna pour a little bit of Old Grandad 114, which is a very inexpensive bourbon. Literally, you can probably find it for about $20, but you'd be surprised. It's delicious. Kind of has a sweet note to it. So, and they're getting ready to stop making it, from what I heard. They're I don't know why, but it might be a good time to go out and buy it. But so I feel like we're on my whiskey channel, which is Scotch Stuff Dummies. But let's talk about what you've got going on with I know you've got a second printing of Storms of Steel coming, Conflict of Heroes, but I also know you have I've got it way in my background. I can't remember the year, but I have 1775 back here. But that was on a ship, I think you told me. Not it, but it's
right. Well, tell you what, we've been working like crazy here in the last year, rebuilding, consolidating, streamlining Academy Games, our order processing, our internal people we've been hiring like crazy, been growing like nuts. And that's kind of put us a little behind from the standpoint of getting the new games out. We've though now hired full-time artists to staff. Tim Densham just joined us for COO, just retired from the Army. So a guy who's in charge of anti-terrorism special forces guy. These guys who've been in the Army 30 years, I mean, they're like, tick, tick, tick. We don't get away with anything anymore.
Wow. Now, who is that again? Who is that?
Tim Densham. He's a wonderful guy, and he's retired in September. And now he's actually been hired again as a consultant for brigade training, anti-terrorism emergency response brigade training. He's very good at it. So he's also been very good from the design aspect with us, and he's also a great interface when we, work with TRADOC and different Army organizations worldwide. Very good interface for us with them as we're developing different games and different training options. But so we have 1775 is not only coming on the boat, but our next game, 1754.
Yes.
And this is a French-Indian War. It's the third game in our American colonial trilogy. The first one was 1812. The second one was 1775. And now this is 1754, the first one. And on this one, we really concentrate on the Six Nations and the alliances between not only the British and English colonials, which turned into Americans a little later on, but also the French and the French colonials and the dram, what's the English word for it? The negotiations to get the six tribes on the respective sides.
First of all, I love when you break into German.
You know, it's so tough because
I love it.
We're internally, we speak a lot of German internally because we have a lot of German-speaking people. And it's so, you know, the prejudices we go through. I was at a convention with the Army, and one of the Army guys there goes, "Oh, we love your games, we're playing, blah, 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 blah. What branch of the service were you in?" I'm like, "I'm sorry, I was never in the American Army." He goes, "What? How can you then be doing our games?" I go, "Well, I'm German." He goes, "Of course." You know, so we have the prejudice, we make good cars, and we know about war games. It's like, you know, one of those things.
See, my great-grandfather didn't want to fight for the Kaiser, so he got on a ship when he was like 12 or 13, lands in Ellis Island. What people don't know is immigrants back then, he had to stay on the island until he was medically cleared, and then a German in Iowa had to pay all his fees and his train fare, and then he had to work for that German for 2 years, and he did such a good job, that guy then started paying him and then helped him get his own farm. And that's how the Bruncheens got over here. We still had, there was a Heinz Bruncheen that I met. He was an older guy, but when he was about 15, he was in Berlin, and he was on an 88 anti-aircraft gun trying to take down the 24s and the B-17s coming in. And he was doing a whole genealogy thing on the branch that came over to America. So, yeah, I'm with you. Maybe that's why I dig Academy Games so much. You're speaking my language, which is no longer my language.
Well, we came over when my dad came over just to play jazz. He was in Dresden when the Americans came in first, in Leipzig before the Russians came in. And the first American units, he was sitting there with the rest, and they'd gone through the firebombing and the stories. He's written it all down. Incredible. And his older brother was in the Hitler Youth fighting, you know, against the Russians and all. But it's fascinating because the first Americans coming through were the specially bred night fighters. And these were a full battalion of night fighters. And I don't know if you're familiar with the American special night fighters. They were, of course, a black battalion. And the Germans were telling their people that these black people were specially bred night fighters. And so it's in German literature and all, but this night fighter comes to my father and looks down, and my father is just terrified. And the next thing is this big night fight. I mean, these guys are scary looking, you know, they've never seen something like this. Just breaks out to a big smile, hands him a piece of Hershey's chocolate. And my dad was in love. And when Louis Armstrong moved to Germany after the war, my dad became a jazz fanatic, played in the Flower Street Sunshine Jazz Group, left Germany, come to America, play jazz, was in New York City trying to get a gig, and the next thing he knows, he was put in a full German-Polish battalion in the U.S. Army, because that's what they did. If you were in the country 6 months, they could pull you into the Army without you saying a snot. You had no choice. And before he knew it, he was on Staten Island, of course, designing the Zeus carrier system, missile carrier systems. Wow. And to this day, he's like, "God damn it. What the hell? No wonder we have problems. Look, they pulled me in, gave me top clearance and all this. They did not know me from Adam. What do they do? I want to play jazz. They make me do missile shit." And it was all Germans. And I go, "Dad, did you have problems designing? Was there a problem?" hell no, we did the best job ever. I said, so why are you complaining? I wanted to play jazz, damn it. So anyway, that's how we went from everybody being in the Air Force and Navy, German Navy, to the American side of things. So it all worked out well.
Wow. That is awesome. So I broke off there when we got into your hirings, but so you were talking about got 1754. I keep missing that because I always think 1775.
It's on the boat now. It's already phenomenal. We've had a lot of success. About 40% of our games are sold to the gaming market. The rest we sell to military personnel and school systems and all. So we're really pushing that the gaming stores and markets know us better. But we've had such a growth rate in these other markets, which luckily other gaming companies aren't pursuing as much. And it's been a blessing for us. So we're trying to streamline everything, automate, so we don't have to double the input from web orders, Amazon orders. It's automatically pulled into our accounting systems, and trying to make it easier that, we send out orders automatically 3 days later. Welcome letters. Hey, you should have received your game. Hopefully you like it if you have any problems. So we're trying to automate and systematize everything. That's taken a lot of work. So a lot of our games have been pushed back a little. And then we have a lot of secret games we've been working on.
That's a good move for you, because you and I have chatted before. You guys, I love when you put your calendars out kind of on what the games are coming in the future.
Yeah.
But I've had fans, Conflict of Hero fans, get with me and say, find out when,
Don't steal, damn it. I know.
Yes. That or and I'm forgetting your airborne deal for Normandy.
Airborne D-Day, yes, that's very close. Also, we have Hürtigen Forest is almost done. The big red one, First Army Division, and the clashes against the Germans in Hürtigen Forest, which was really the aftermath of Battle of the Bulge. And Americans don't know much about it because it was probably the bloodiest campaign in World War II with Americans. So that's almost done. We have France 1940. I don't know if you can see the painting on my back wall there.
Steve Pichal, I recognize.
Yes. Oh, I love, his paintings. I don't know. I don't think we've published this anywhere, but I love this painting. This is going to be the cover painting to 1940 Invasion of France.
Yes.
And I love the colors and everything he's done. So Steve Pichal is just such an incredible artist.
Well, and what he does so well is he's able to convey like the chaos and the movement in the art, which is just phenomenal. I mean, you can kind of feel that, like, how everything's almost fuzzed as if the camera couldn't catch the scene.
Yeah. Yeah, I love his work, and what's so neat about it, he is known. People check out Stephen Pichal. We haven't known all our games. I should be able to tell you, but Stephen Pichal, check him out. His website, his artwork. He specializes in historical artwork, but also in Polynesian Hawaiian history.
Yeah,
and his water scenes and his war canoe scenes and his Asian Oriental scenes. Incredible. And then I don't know if I pronounce this right, he's a Baha'ist, and he does a lot of historical work in Asia and everything, and beautiful work. So big shout out. We're probably one of the last companies that still employ true oil paint artists.
Right. He's got a great story. His wife is he lives in Hawaii. She's of Japanese descent, and her father, I believe it's her father, fought in the 442nd, which was the all-Japanese unit that actually saves the Texans that are actually stuck, and nobody could get to them. The highest, the most highly awarded unit in the European theater.
Yeah, we've promised him to do a game on that, a Conflict of Heroes game also, because it really is an overlooked chapter for a lot of the American military history in the gaming. So it is an active pursuit of ours that we're beginning, because we still have to get the paintings up there already done for the quite well. I'm not going to even mention them.
Don't say it, because the other thing folks wanted me to ask you about was Gettysburg.
Oh, Gettysburg. We are actively, the first day, and then the second day is way down there on that side of my office somewhere. But Gettysburg is very active. Peter Rovanieri and I, the maps and everything were done, but we decided to go with 100-meter maps instead of the 200-meter maps, hex maps, which had to make the maps a little bigger. That means since in a hexagonal type of, and this was very 3D. I don't know if you ever saw the maps we had. Beautiful. We're getting even more highly detailed now. But now that we're going to 100-yard, not meters, 100-yard hexes, that changes the topography a little, how the artwork was formed, so it's easy for people to see, et cetera, et cetera. So we're having to, it's another $6,000 for just a few little parts of the map to redo them. But again, this morning I've been working last 2 or 3 days, getting not only the northern half, but the southern half. We're going to do it in 2 games. And I'm glad for the delay. We were supposed to publish this. We were ready to publish it like 3.5, 4 years ago.
Yeah.
But we've made so many changes. A huge Xbox, one of the top 15 first-person shooter games of all times. They contacted us a year and a half ago and said, hey, we love your war games. We have them in our offices sitting here. A lot of military guys here. Would you be interested in doing our first-person shooter, a board game version of the new one coming out in 2017? And I said, I've never heard of this game. He says, really? He said, well, go in like any Walmart, GameStop, and I go in and there's like a whole shelf of them. So I'm like, this might be a good thing. So we signed the contract, a whole year of negotiation. You're like the first person to know about this.
I was going to say, I haven't heard of this. You got an NDA going on with these guys?
The NDA's open, but I'm still not saying who it is because the release date is going to be this fall. And what it's allowed us to do, though, is that we've built a system now for this first-person shooter based on our Gettysburg game. But the development for this game that we've been working with the guys there and the military guys, because now the military guys say, whoa, this is phenomenal for small tactical squad level Fallujah type of wargaming system, 3D with miniatures, the whole deal. So we're put a lot of effort into that also because it's very novel, very unique. And that's going to really affect our war games also because we're hoping that we're going to get, they've only sold like 32 million copies in the last 3 years. I mean, the staggered numbers of these video game companies is phenomenal.
You're killing me.
So if we're going dual release of the game with the Xbox video computer games and them pushing the board game, we're hoping that that's going to open up a whole new segment of people for war games. That could be huge. Yeah. And that's why, again, this year I've pulled back prepping for that, because a company, most people, they concentrate on the design development, but really the big key part to make a company and also customer service successful is to have the support system in place, have everything totally streamlined, etc. So that's what we've really been concentrating on.
Wow. And hey, quick programming note, because I'm showing different viewers coming in and out, but I did not open, I probably could, but I didn't open my screen that shows me any kind of conversations going on. So my bad if folks are putting live questions. I don't want to do it at this point, risk either slowing everything down or dropping the call. So this is only my second live show. So for folks watching, I'll perfect that in the future, and I will guarantee I'll have you back, Uwe, and so that we can actually take questions. Now, let's see. So I know you can't. You've teased me. Now I want to know so much. I want to just come over to your house so I can look around and see what's secretly going on there.
Well, we are testing like crazy. All these games. Our next one that's coming out is our Viking Invasions of England. And this is the same system like 1775 and 1754 French Indian War. Oh, old granddad. But the big difference with the Kickstarter I don't know if you can see these or if they're in focus enough, but they're going to be miniatures in the game. So all the little cubes and everything are going to be in 15 millimeter miniatures, and all different factions. These are going to be different colors. These are artist proofs, but they're going to be 15 millimeters, very nicely, highly detailed miniatures. And so instead of having cubes and everything, it's actually going to be little miniatures, and then the army captains are going to be big 30 millimeter units.
Perfect. Those were coming in great.
It's really exciting because the Vikings it's a fun game. So everything's done. Why we have not done the Kickstarter yet, we were going to start it back in December, but then we decided to add a few more videos and everything. And videos, the 3D videos, take a long time to make.
Right. Now, just some history on you. I know you have an engineering background, and didn't you own your own company that you I may be wrong, but let me know. I thought you sold it off and then started the board game company.
Yeah, this is my 7th company.
I've
had companies from my first company was manufacturing high-speed cutter blades, tools, military knives, weapons. We made for military. I developed a special meta steel, which is a stainless 440C stainless steel with ceramic alloys in it, and it was hardenable. And we used to have the patents and all that on that, and it's still, people haven't figured out. We did quite a bit of cool stuff. Then we had, I sold that for a good profit, then was heavy in the internet business with Networld Online. We had one of the biggest online gambling sites.
Really?
Yeah, with poker, blackjack, roulette, everything. And it was legit because this was in 2000, and we started in 1999 or 1998. That's when the internet wasn't big. AOL was the big thing and all. And we did the same thing like AOL, with where you came in and you saw the people and you're sitting down playing games. But the beauty was, by federal law, we passed all muster because we never paid out money. They paid us money, and they had to buy every second they were on our site to gamble. It was costing them a credit, and then they gambled in credits.
Wow.
But they only won back credits. And we never cashed them out. It was a beautiful system. Did us a lot of good. We sold that to Halo Corporation, the Ivanka Trump group. And we knew about Donald Trump way long ago already. So one of the businesses to her, she was incredible, her organization and all. And then after that, we had in the beauty industry, bought distributorships, built companies in Europe, in Germany that covered the Eastern European bloc, France, and the German-speaking countries. And then out of nowhere, Jarden came and purchased those companies. Jarden makes like 30% of everything you find in Walmart. They make the U.S. nickel, Bell jars, Ace cards, Columbia gear, K2 skis, huge company. And they bought our company, and I was with them. And within 6 months, I was head of their engineering and new product development and innovation for their Sunbeam, Oster divisions and all that. Had a lot of fun. After my 2 years necessary required service, I gave my resignation, and they slapped me with a 5-year non-compete.
No.
So, and lawyers say, people say, oh, Uwe, you can get out of those. And I go, yeah, but you never want to go against a $15 billion company with good lawyers. That's just a rounding error for them to fight you. Oh, exactly. And they were great people to work with, So then I had to sit and go, well, I wasn't allowed to do anything in engineering, nothing with plastics, especially with plastics and metallurgy, and nothing with consumer products. So what do? Well, let's start a board game company. So
beautiful. Well, and on that note, wargaming was really out of fashion, and then Conflict of Hero comes along. You've enlarged the counters. You've got a streamlined system that gets you into Conflict of Heroes within about 5 to 10 minutes of instruction or even reading, because you're one of those first companies that actually kind of rolled the rules out, like, hey, you're just going to learn squad against squad, and then when you got that down, you can go on to your artillery or your vehicles, and you really brought that out. It hit the hobby board game market by storm.
Well, all we did was copied original Squad Leader. I mean, Squad Leader did that also, and I was a Squad Leader ASL fanatic. Loved it, but I mean, the books were this big, and nobody nowadays has more than an hour time to learn a new game.
Right.
Even us old guys, we're now also, it's like our attention span is shrunk and our time is shrunk.
Yeah, you're right on. I mean, I really I got with GMT when MBT Main Battle Tank came out, just because I loved that. Was kind of, I grew up graduating high school in '88, and I just was like, I was hesitant, but I so wanted to get it. But even though I got it, I won't say anything negative about them. I like the game, but the problem is that length of game, or even the different manuals I've got. They've done a good job, but I've got a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old, and then we're doing stuff and work's going, and I'm doing the show. And I just have a hard time sitting down and getting a game played. Whereas, again, I've had a buddy come over who just, as soon as I got Guadalcanal, he was like, I've got to come over. And my Monday is one of my days off. Nobody's here. So I'm either filming, editing, or playing games. And he's like, I got to come over and play Guadalcanal with you. And as soon as we get into it, here's what Conflict of Heroes does. Not only is it a system that's easy to understand, short rules, but it tells a narrative as you play through. And, I was trying to get I can't remember the name, but the Rangers off of the island. He's trying to stop it. And it just was as if I was almost watching a movie.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, it's great to hear. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's just, that's what's so phenomenal. So easy to get into. I will say, anybody out there watching, means test your dice. Use 3 dice. Count your APs up. And I know I'm inside baseball here, but I love it.
Super, super. Have you tried using the solo system, the cards, instead of tracking your APs? That works really well also.
Yes.
Now, I have to say, Gunta did an incredible job. He brought in this whole Bushido code and everything. And in the later scenarios, the Bushido, and we're trying to get across to people that what doesn't make sense for us today, we wouldn't act and command this way today, but how the culture was at the time, by just not making many rules, but just saying, hey, this is a code. If you lose your face in this game, all this bad stuff starts happening. And then all of a sudden it starts making sense for you to start charging machine gun positions and all that, because in your mind, that's the way you're going to win. And that's
100%. Yeah, because if normally, when you're just playing out a board game, you're going to say, well, I wouldn't tactically do that. I'm going to destroy my units. But with your Bushido code point system, now there's a reason to do it, which actually is historically correct to what happened.
Yeah. So, well, thank you. Yeah, we have more and more of we did also the Army expansion. So more and more of those scenarios are coming out. The Marines went in first, and then the Army came in October, November. So, and there's always this, when we were designing it, we're getting Army and Marine Corps, officers playing the game. They're like, this BS, Uwe. And they didn't use the word BS, but, we're sensitive since this is.
They said shenanigans. This is shenanigans.
This is shenanigans, Uwe, because the Marine Corps were always better than the Army guys. And we're like, no, sorry, guys. This is like, this is early war. You guys were a bunch of hooligans from inner cities. You weren't better than the Army. Later on, a lot of training happened that specialized in many ways. But hate to say it, boys, but, half the time you wanted to run. If it weren't for your NCOs with pistols to your heads to keep you from running off Edison Ridge, it would have been a totally different ball game. It's your NCOs that cover it, not the freaking Marine Corps. And then it's like, all right, we'll give you that, And then the Army guys go, well, it's bullshit anyway because we've been better, blah, blah. It's like, stay out of that, That's when I go, I know nothing, I'm German.
There you go. I know I ran into, I was at this little diner, and there was an old guy that came in, and he'd asked me what I was eating, and we ended up sitting together, and he'd been a major in Pearl Harbor when it was hit. And he was in the Marine Corps, and I knew, but then he started talking about, hey, when World War II kicked off, there was like 200,000 Marines total. Yeah. And, they grew I can't even give you a figure, but what, 1.1 million or something. I mean, and I mean, you had, you know, they extended him, and yeah, he just said the amount of folks that came in. You know, the Marine Corps usually didn't draft, and then there was a point where they were even drafting in at one point.
Well, and I don't want to get people think the Marine Corps was incredible what they did and what they went through and all. They were incredibly good, but the Army was incredibly good also.
Mm-hmm.
Just later on with the specialties and as they really got the experience, because you know you had a bunch of guys who grew up in the big cities with World War I veterans. They heard the stories and all. And the thing was, I'm going to join the Marine Corps, and these became these really tough inner city NCOs and all that, and they made the Marine Corps. I mean,
Bella Wood. I mean, World War I, Bella Wood.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's phenomenal, and that's why, you know, it's fun playing war games, and especially that's when we're really in many like GMT and Flying Pig and Lock and Load, they're getting more and more into, we're not just going to make this a war game, we're going to make this where you actually learn something. And for us, it's really, we try to be so neutral. You know, like Guadalcanal, we're not saying that the Americans are the bad guys or the Japanese are the bad guys. We're trying to say this is what it was, is what happened, and try to stay very neutral in it. And it's luckily, I think we're becoming more and more astute to history that is not frowned upon as it was in the past.
Right. No, I agree with you 100%. Yeah, 100%. The Pacific War was just a vicious slog. I mean, it was just. I mean, when it switched over to, you know, I mean, the Japanese just slogging it out to the last man, it just got brutal.
And you didn't want to be prisoner, or it's incredible. My grandfather, my mother's father, Rudiopa, he was captured in Persia, in Tehran, Persia, by the Russians. Luckily traded to, and I won't even say what he was doing. That's a whole nother story. What, you know, how the German end up in Persia? Well, if you know history, you know what the Germans were doing there. But he was traded to the British, sent to the camps in Australia. And they treated the Germans very well. I mean, he was an artist, and I have tons of paintings of him in the prisoner of war camps. But how the Japanese were treated, you know, and when I was growing up, and we have these paintings of all these, he was a portrait artist, and he had friends, Japanese friends also, and they kind of kept them apart, but it's still intermingled though. And the pictures and what they went through, they got sick, they're thrown on a bunk, no medicines, you know. They're better off just die quick. And I didn't understand it growing up until I started reading more about the atrocities of the Pacific War and what the English and American prisoners of war went through. And now I understand a little more what was going on. And, you know, thank goodness that the British didn't have many German prisoners, but they had full Lager sections of German prisoner of war in Australia. And they loved it. Most of them stayed there then after the war. So they got along.
We've got a lot of stories here where a lot of German prisoners from the African campaign came over.
Yeah.
Were in, you know, Idaho and different things. And yeah, I mean, well, I dated a girl years ago whose grandfather actually ended up losing his leg, but he has a grenade go off while he's in a fighting position, a foxhole, and the German medic picks him up, speaks English to him, treats him, leaves him and the other guy in a farmhouse, and says, "Hey, we got to fall back because you guys are pushing us back. See ya." You know, and they were like, "What?" I mean, it was just. I mean, it was it was a different war on both fronts.
Oh, yeah.
Man, oh man. I mean, so there was that respect for the fighting man, and you know, the medic treated him, and the fact that, you know, spoke English and left him some food and then said, "See you later."
Yeah, so. Yeah. It's I've been lucky. I've videotaped many veterans from World War II in the area, German veterans, and most of them are dead now. But I got hours and hours on video of Fritz Rahl, who was with Rommel in the desert. He was Vorwärts Speer. He was a forward observer. And the stories he has to tell. And, you know, I didn't want the little stuff. I didn't want the big stuff.
Right.
But the stories on, like, you had to go to the toilet. What did you do? You guys didn't have any paper or anything, you know? And it's phenomenal. Just, even saying, they could never eat food. There are always flies around their mouths, no matter what. And then they'd get their Kugelwagen going at 25 kilometers per hour. The flies would be gone. As soon as they stopped, flies were on them again. And when they got captured and they were put to the Moors to go with the trains to Casablanca, and there they were then transferred, and the atrocities that the Egyptians did to, or the Africans did to them then. And then they got on this huge ship with, it was a cruise liner. And they were put in there, and the suites had iron bars put on front of them, and they put 6 officers per room. And this was an officer prisoner. He was an officer. And it's just, he broke down crying. He said, they took us to dinner the first day, and there was a table with a tablecloth. And he says, Uwe, I'd not eaten well in 3 years. I was in Africa 3 years, and here they have a tablecloth, and black men were coming and serving us on plates food. And he just started crying, and he was there. And you get the feeling, then the train's going to Colorado. And then he's saying, yes, we were going, and we were on the trains for 3 days. And then he breaks down crying again. I go, what's the matter? He said, we were driving back past a big city, and all of a sudden fireworks were going off everywhere. The Americans were celebrating. And he said, we thought Hitler had died. And it was 4th of July.
Wow.
And getting these little stories, I mean, the emotional turmoil that both sides go through is just, and it's that's why I think history is so important, that we look at both sides.
Yeah.
Because we're going through so much shit right now, and it's so easy for us to take one viewpoint and say, okay, those are bad guys, we're good guys. It's much easier to say, we have our cause we believe in. We have to see what they're thinking, what is going through their brain, so that we know why they're even our adversaries, and it's very interesting. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens here in the future with not only Syria and the whole now expansion of the Russian and Ukraine and the whole Eastern blocs and the fear going on with Poland and all. We're going to be living in interesting times, which, for a war game company is, it really for us is, we're going,
Yeah.
It's, we'd rather have a peaceful time and nothing happening and just worry about history. But history repeats itself. It always repeats.
It does. Yeah, if you don't read history, you're doomed to repeat it. I agree 100%. I was just reading a Stackpole book. There's a German guy that kind of works in the same building I do. And he said, hey, I know you read a lot. Would you like to read this? It's the author, it was originally written in German. He was a Tiger tank commander on the East Front. I'm going to mess up his name, but it was like Otto Cassius.
Huh.
And it was just a great story because, I mean, he gives you some of those little details. And I'm with you. I like those little details. Same reason I like tactical war games over operational or even grand strategic is I really like that human story that's in there. I mean, he covered the first Tiger tank, the hatch popped up and stuck out like a sore thumb. And in the future, the next version, they made it so it would rotate and dial out so that it didn't stick up, and it was easier for them to hide and be in, I always mess this up, a defilade or whatever, where they could be, have the turret down. And I was just like, those are that's the stuff I like. And then he talks in that book about how the reason, he says the Tiger tank was phenomenal, but their commanders would keep their hatch open, or he would be out on foot, or he would get in a Kugelwagen, and they had a Kugelwagen, and he would take it forward and find out where the line is and then come on back. And they had a great story. I can't remember exactly where they were at. There was some pocket they were in. And he spent quite a lot of time talking about this German NCO, that it was his job to bring them food to the front. And he would come up with food and warm coffee. And every time he drove in his truck, he would get mortared and shelled. But he felt like it was his duty to make sure he could get this warm food and coffee, up to these guys on the front. And he continued to do it until his vehicle got destroyed. He survived, but that's a story I was like, wow, just reading that chapter alone was worth the book.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's phenomenal. Even, like in the Africa Corps, they take a crap, and he said literally within 2 minutes, the crap was gone, because all these dung beetles would come out in the middle of the desert, would come out of nowhere, roll up in little balls, and they had the best fun with it. And within 2 minutes, it was gone, disappeared. And stories like that, they don't teach you in the books.
No. Oh, let's bring it back into Academy Games again. What else can you talk about? And I know you can't. There's some you can't.
What's so exciting now with the what we were talking about with that first-person shooter game and the Gettysburg, we use the basis of Gettysburg for the first-person shooter, but the development of this first-person shooter has so now influenced our Gettysburg game. And as I said before, the Gettysburg game has no dice to it. It is a continuous flow game. There are no turns. There are no phases. You're playing. And it's now so streamlined. It has battlefield memory. It's every battalion, it's battalion controlled. Brigade controlled. Every brigade has its historical to the day, their morale, their leadership, how they were in relation to the other units, their relative strength and abilities to the other units. So the problem is it's so streamlined now that these scenarios that we had, which were taking maybe an hour to an hour and 20 minutes, now are being streamlined into half hour, because you're just playing, no dice, you see everything visual. So what's so exciting about game design is that game design is really growing, and not only from a psychological factor of how to get people immersed into the board game and that really quick tucked that dopamine cycle, as we termed it, but also there are no more exemption rules. There's no more look it up in the rules. It's being built into the game engines. So it's really exciting, and we're really trying to stay on the cutting edge of that, because there's so many phenomenal designers now with the internet and the blossoming of board games. And most of the war game companies are now figuring out, hey, there's a new way of doing it. It's not the old, let's look at 10 charts and, I'm going to shoot and it takes me 5 minutes to figure out what happened.
Right.
In that 5 minutes, we want to know what is my relative strength, what is the probability of being effective, boom, done, onward. Now, let's build up to that the psychological effect, because in most battles, it wasn't guys being killed. Like in Conflict of Heroes, we say, even though your unit disappears as taken off the board, it's a 95% probability that it isn't that they're dead. It just means they're combat ineffective. For this battle, they're no longer combat effective. So that is really exciting with the Gettysburg game, where in the old games, it was just line to line and one would break and we'll go through. But in Gettysburg, the modern research is showing it was like ocean waves, waves up a beach. The brigade would come up and back and up and back. Fatigue, mental fatigue, thirst fatigue. That's what drove the men to fall back. So we're building this all into there. And one book that my favorite book of all time, I highly recommend anybody who's into Gettysburg or history. This book, phenomenal. I highly recommend it to anybody. It's by Mark Atkin, The Gettysburg Companion, and it just goes through all the little details that really, really bring home what Gettysburg was like. Like he says, if you have 1,000 men facing each other, 1,000 men facing each other 100 yards apart, and they fire at each other, how many people get hit? 1,000 men firing at 100 yards, 3. I mean, it's like, and that's just wound. I mean, it's like, it's incredible. You think about that the Gettysburg of 150,000 plus men for 4 days fighting, and they had about, around 7,000 men casualties on each side. Now, there were a lot of wounded also. But 4 days of this grinding.
Now, I've got to ask. You're saying no dice. Yes, it's flowing back and forth.
Yes.
How is this?
It's a very, and we're going to be showing this out because I'm pushing to get this out before the end of this next year. It is very unique. It's card action. So what we've done is we've taken all of the probabilities of all the charts, all the looking up on columns. If this hits and then this happened, what happens? You turn a card. On the left-hand side are 5 hexes. Let's say you're shooting with smoothbore rifle unit, and you're 2 hexes away from the opponents, 100 or 200 yards away. Well, if it shows with your weapon symbol on 2 hexes or less, you got a hit. But if your weapon is above that, you missed. On that same card, then, it shows if there's a wood symbol, that means that if they're in woods, the hit doesn't count. It's all in there. All these statistics and probabilities with modern design is put on there. Then it shows exactly how many hits you got. Then you go in your hit counter bag to see what kind of hits. If they're yellow hits, that means they want to fall back. And that yellow counter then goes on that regiment's hit track. So what's happening is, as things are happening to the units during the battle and the brigade, and they start running a lot, well, guess what? The propensity for them to run later in this battle are greater than another unit that's been holding. And so it's a very unique system for a war game, what we've done. And we've just really tightened the probabilities and statistics in these cards with not only if they're hit, with if they're in cover, if they're on higher ground, if they have units on each side, regiments on each side of them, if they're being hit from the flank. It's all very quick visual. So you're not going through all these different charts, but the probabilities are 100% there. Then when you're hit, what happens? What if your leader dies? What if it's not this unit goes and this unit goes and this unit. No, you can keep on using a battalion or a brigade, but if they start getting too tired, then their morale starts crashing. Their propensity to run and want to withdraw goes up. The system is very, very unique. We've been working on it now, and I'm very happy for the delay because we've tightened it up now to a point where I think it's going to be a groundbreaking game for the war game industry, because it is where I can teach the game to an 8-year-old in 2 minutes. Wow. And it's got the depth of the old war games that had a 60-page rule book.
Yeah.
So, and that's just modern game design.
Yeah. See, you've got me intrigued now. And there's going to be guys that are going to be like, bring this out next week.
You know, and I feel bad, but I don't, because, you know, people go, oh, Uwe, you know, you've been worried. You said this was going to be out 4 or 3 years ago and blah, blah, blah. You know, when we delay a game, we're losing money. We do this for a business full time. Yeah. I have employees. We have a full staff, internal designers, artists. When we delay a game, it costs us money.
Yes.
And we're not delaying it because we're trying to take advantage from people. We're delaying it because, unfortunately, we're too picky. And often I think, and I've been known to be a little over anal, and then I put out the game and I still find a bunch of
what you mean German.
Yeah, thank you. I won't go what some of our foreign partners say about us, but yes.
Oh, I would imagine. Yeah, I imagine you got on a couple Chinese printers before saying, "What is this? What is this? Bring up the standard."
You know what? I've been very lucky with our Chinese printers. One thing I've learned about Chinese, and that's why we talked about it before the show. You know, I have a whole case of Knob Creek that I'm, you know, bringing along in my suitcases as gifts to the Chinese, because the Chinese love anything American. They love American clothing. They love anything American. And of course, me liking stuff like you do,
yeah.
I try to get local. And, you know, Knob Creek is one of my favorite bourbons, and they have a cool story on it and all. And it has a really nice wax thing. So I thought, you know, it's a perfect present to bring to all these Chinese.
It is. It is, and I don't mean to disparage Chinese. Now, I want to tease one more thing, and I know it's way, way out there. But years ago, I read where there were some Russian board game players that had all these scenarios for the Conflict of Heroes system set maybe in Stalingrad.
Yeah, they contacted us, and they said they had 2 army officers and 2 historians from Leningrad, the Stalingrad city, which was renamed, but and they're working on Stalingrad from the Russian perspective. But since Ukraine, these were active officers. Since Ukraine debacle happening started 2 years ago, that project's been kind of put on hold, unfortunately. But what I already have most of the scenarios already set, and the archives that their historians are pulling out that we as Westerners don't even have our hands on yet, where I never knew this. And they said, Uwe, we have all the documents, we can send you everything. They send me photocopies of a special German paratrooper platoon was sent into Stalingrad to take out Paulus and to take him out, because Hitler knew he was beginning to falter.
Right. So he sent in some.
He sent in a special to take care of him. Right. And unfortunately, they landed near the front lines, and they got in battle with the Russians. The Russians captured them all and interrogated them. And now these archives, interrogation archives and all, have been opened. Fascinating, so these are scenarios that they're building in. And I'm like, holy cow, we as Westerners don't have access to this. So we want to show Stalingrad, because most of the people who've put out games on Stalingrad have really worked from the German perspective. My uncle was in the 6th Panzer, and incredible stories, and I've talked about them before, in Stalingrad, and then he was with the Romanians in artillery brigades after he couldn't get back with his troop. But looking at it from the Russian side, we want to portray it and show it from the Russian perspective, just to give Stalingrad a different viewpoint. Unfortunately, it has been put on hold until this whole Ukrainian debacle.
Sure. Shouldn't even tease it. But that was another place where Academy Games comes through. Is your first game with your tactical World War II system is Awakening the Bear, which I talked to some folks that love World War II history, but they know the American World War II history, not realizing that 3/4 of the Western theater, and I may be underplaying that, all the action happened on the Eastern Front. I mean, the Western theater was a small, I mean, Stalin wanted that other, he had to have some other fronts going on to just relieve the pressure. But my goodness, the conflict going on the Eastern Front was just brutal.
And people go, it was stupid, but that's with hindsight. If the Germans had gotten Moscow, 2 weeks earlier and taken over Moscow, it could have changed the whole war, and then Hitler would have been a genius. So hindsight, it's the stupidest thing in the world to do a 2-front war. But if you look at it now, with a few years between World War II and now, you can look back and go, and with the internet, it's incredible because there's so much data that you can compile. It's interesting, and as games develop more, it's interesting to give these different viewpoints. And that's why I always caution people, even with our the big debacle going on now with Putin and everything. And he scares the hell out of me because the organization he's building up and this nationalism. But look at it from a Russian standpoint. Here, you're Russian. You see Russia, the breakdown of the wall, the loss of East Germany, the whole Eastern fronts, America having army bases in all these countries surrounding Russia within 100 miles of your Russian borderline. And here comes a guy who is now taking back like the Crimea and all that, which to us as Americans is 100% unacceptable. But from a Russian standpoint, you can see why a lot of Russians, he does have some appeal. And that type of man is the scariest adversary to have. So it'll be interesting to see how things develop. And I think we are coming to one of the scariest times in American history as a historical war game company, because Americans have not had core level engagements for 20, 25 years. So our men have been trained over and over, and they have to be very specifically trained in a battalion strength type of engagements in Afghanistan, Iraq, and everything, because now we have to be very careful, because with the internet, everything's online right away. What happens now, all of a sudden, if we do have core engagements and whole campaigns from a logistical standpoint, how do we have to bring the Air Force and the Army and everything together again? How do we merge this? How do we change our line of sight? So it's a scary but also a very exciting time from a military perspective.
Sure.
And probably we'll be talking a lot more about this over the years, and hopefully nothing happens, because America is still the superpower. Our technology is so above everybody else's. Our armor, America. I always hear people, the fear mongers, saying, "Oh, our military is going to crap and all." We're 15 years ahead in technology, in almost everything. And 15 years in technology is the difference between being a superpower and not being a superpower.
Right. Well, I always wonder. I had a buddy of mine that got reactivated for Gulf War I, because he'd been an Air Force MP with the stealth fighter when he was on active duty, and they pulled him back in because it was still secret. And when all that comes out, you realize that stealth fighter had been secret since 67 or something. I always wonder what is there now.
Bombs and everything. I mean, just and they never even show those, but our fuel dispersion bombs, that when they go off, I mean, they take out a 10-mile radius area that just boom, and all air disappears. I mean, stuff they can do nowadays, it's phenomenal. And I have no fear. America, we have to be very careful, and war is always the last option.
Mm-hmm.
But Putin, everything they like, they're saber rattling, and I have no fear. America is.
Well, and I love right now really how the economies are all so tied in. They're not as insular as there used to be, and there's a lot of safety in that as well.
Yeah. I hope. You can always have a crazy man go crazy. I mean, look what Hitler did. I mean, America and Germany were so tight before World War II, and in Russia and Germany, and you get one stupid guy doing one stupid thing, and stupid things can happen. But the difference is, if the internet had existed in 1938, 1937, I do not think there would have been a World War II.
Right. I agree. Now we got about 3 minutes left. So what do you want to say from Academy Games in closure here? By the way, before we get to that, I want to say, if you guys get a chance, go up and talk to Academy Games or Uwe or Gunter or whoever you have out when you're at a con, because I think it's because of your business model and your past history. You guys are so competent, so confident, so relaxed, and so fun to talk to at a con that it's a pleasure just hanging out with you. I mean, you were so busy, we couldn't chat. We would have to link up after the store is closed. But I wanted to throw that out, and then I'll just kick it back to you.
Well, I want to say definitely the Knob Creek Single Barrel Reserve is definitely worth the extra price. Secondly, thanks for having us up. Thirdly, I started yoga 2 weeks ago. Holy crap. I hate doing it, but I went this morning at 7 o'clock. I feel so good now. My lower back was hurting since I did yoga. I feel great again. So
I can't believe you brought that up. I actually, we have a detective who's a yoga instructor, and she started doing a first responders class.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I just started going about 3 weeks ago, because I'm 6'6", and I've never been very flexible. And I thought, well, I'll work on my flexibility, but I couldn't believe the amount of core muscles that were sore that I didn't know existed.
I tell you, doing those stupid planks and all that, And these women hold it for like 5 minutes. And after 30 seconds, I'm like,
Yes.
it's like I feel like such a, oh my God. So, oh, that's so cool.
No, I know. When you said that, I thought that's hilarious because I was just telling her, I said, she had me in this pigeon pose, and I was like, and then she apologized at the class because she said, sorry, we went a little low this time. We had some other new people there. And I'm like, that was slow?
Yeah.
I said, I had to cheat to get into the pigeon pose just because she was going from, like you're saying, from the plank, wrap this leg and come in. I'm like, I'm gonna have to cheat.
Oh, wow. You know what? I'm going to talk to you in 3 months, see how you feel, because I tell you what, I hate the class, and I'm doing this hot yoga half the time, and I hate that even more than anything else. And then, oh my goodness! But guys, any of you guys, you'll feel muscles. You'll know stiffnesses you never knew you had, and it's probably the best thing I can recommend. I love it. I love it.
Yep.
So you're doing it too. Hey.
Yeah, that's the perfect way to end. We got a new chief here. So a lot of folks know I'm a sergeant of the police department, and he heard her pitch and authorized it as in-service training. And they were like, you can go on duty, and it takes about an hour and a half. And they talked about the proper breathing, which is great if we ever get into a combat situation. I'm like, I'm in.
Yeah.
There were a bunch of guys that were like, man, I'm not going to that. I'm like, well, I'm going, and it's been phenomenal. So I can't believe you brought that up. That's perfect.
Well, I'll tell you what, now we have 2 things in common.
Bingo. 3. Whiskey. Yeah, whiskey, board games, and yoga.
And yoga now. So,
and Germanness. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to let you go, brother. I appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you so much.
And I want to wish you a very happy new year. Be safe, a healthy 2017. And may life treat you well, and all the listeners, may life be going well for you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, and Happy New Year to you and everybody out there. I appreciate it. We're gonna hang on for a second here, and I'm going to cut the live feed.